Hey everybody, it's Bust with a video we're calling Where We're Going, We Don't Need Roads, Maps in 2023. And so, if you're not familiar with Back to the Future and the Where We Don't Need Roads kind of reference, you're probably too young for the channel anyways, but if you're looking to catch some boomer references from 15 years before you were born, the Back to the Future was a fantastic movie franchise. But back to the lands of Runeterra, back to the seriousness. Riot has released quite a bit of information and knowledge on the future of the game, both in the release schedule and in the competitive events, and so we wanted to take a video to stop and talk about that. But before we jump into those kind of things, I did want to give a couple of news-based resources that I think are kind of useful that expand upon these ideas just a little bit. And so I get a lot of my Runeterra news just off of the Twitter. The play Runeterra is, of course, the official one, but if you use LOR Report, this is the unofficial news site for the Legends of Runeterra, and this is another fantastic resource as well. They tend to go out a lot and piece together a lot of the dev tweets and information from Reddit and such, and put it together in a singular place. And so, highly recommend both of those. And then, since we are here on the YouTube, the Legends of Runeterra thing as well also posts a bunch of videos. But it's weird to me, and that if you're looking at the homepage, you can't see all the new stuff. I guess you have to scroll down. It's over in the shorts section to where Riot, Ruben Zoo, and Dave Guskin and friends have been talking about the upcoming changes. And so, it's a little bit challenging to search around all of the internet and find all of this information, but hopefully those kind of things will help you out just a little bit. And so, in terms of the two big topics today, with the roadmap, this is mainly talking about what is coming. This mainly is focusing in on the release of new cards, and so they have started to take this three-tier format as to what's to coming soon, what's going to be here in the near future, and stuff that they're kind of designing for way down the road. And it's a much more developer friendly way to do this, in my opinion. I'm glad they switched from putting things out there based on dates, because then if you miss a date or you have to move a date, people freak the fuck out on Reddit. And so I think it's nice to have these kind of ambiguous notes. But the big thing coming out of this one is going to be the quarterly release cycle. And so the way the game has been kind of functioning over the past year or so is this idea that we're going to get a new set 1 month, and then the next month we're going to get a balance patch. Then the next month we're going to get a new set, and then the month after that we'll get a balance patch. And then within each of those new sets, they're actually three sets broken down, or one big set broken down into three smaller ones. And so they're moving away from that idea and theme a little bit, as to where now 1 month we will get a new expansion, a set of new cards. The next month we will get a balance patch, and then the next month after that we'll get what they're calling a variety set, which is, I assume, much more in line with something like the KDA release, to where it was very thematically tied in together. Or if you want to think to say like the Shyvana Viego Dead Dragons kind of release, whatever we're calling that, as opposed to being what I would expect with expansions, as to where they're going to be releasing the major mechanics and the major storylines of the game. And so, pretty cool. I'm all for these setups to where the game gets kind of like refreshed every month. I always tie this back to playing Hearthstone, and in Hearthstone there was a release cycle that was every 4 months, and so it was basically like a new set would come out, you'd grind the ladder really hard, it would be pretty fun. The next month you would do a little bit more grinding, but it would start to get old, and then they might do some minor changes between month 2 and month 3, and then from month 3 and beyond, it was just a fucking snooze fest. If you didn't actively seek like hitting top 100 legend or whatever, you would basically just hit legend and quit playing. And so it's very nice to have these kind of refreshers once a month, so you have a little bit more opportunity for the game to change. It doesn't feel like you're playing the same game over and over and over again forever. And so I think that's pretty cool. The other kind of tie-in with that is kind of the hype factor, right? Everyone, if you come from like a Magic background, if you go and pull up Reddit right now, there's probably some new product being released, and Magic has finally gotten to the point where people are getting kind of tired of all the new releases. But as we kind of like move into the competitive piece next, it is nice having the release of new cards tied in with the competitive scene, and it always just kind of gives you some kind of hype, something to be excited about for the game, something new to talk about, and something shiny to put into your toolbox or whatever. And so I think it's pretty cool, pretty neat that we're kind of formalizing and getting into this monthly schedule. So something always exciting is coming about. And so last but not least, before we move away from this article, Dave Guskin did mention that the live balance patch of this cycle is the upcoming one. That will be hitting in February. So the live balance patch will come out in February. I think it's going to be coming up next week. I'm always fucking wrong about this stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to come out around the 7th of February, and that kind of ties in with Riot talking about the hack pushing stuff into February, and then also some of the competitive changes. And so it may not be until the second patch in February. I'm not entirely certain, and I'm typically wrong, so it is probably the second patch, but February is to where this cycle is supposed to begin, and so that means that we should get the new expansion in April, and that new expansion in April is also when the rotation is supposed to happen. And so exciting stuff all aboard there. I'm pretty hype about all of it. Bust, do you have complaints with any of this? I do not. And so, good stuff there. And so then to go back, there is also the competitive in 2023 piece of the equation. And this is a pretty interesting article, a lot to kind of digest in here. The big thing, in my opinion, is the addition of the Daily Rumble. And so the gauntlet that we've become used to playing is going to be a daily type event that kind of ties into building towards other events and building in towards other rewards. And so it's going to be a daily event that starts at 4 p.m. Based on when you're shard. So if you're playing in the Americas region, that would be 4 p.m. California time or East Coast time or Riot time, whatever that is. For me in Central time, it would be 6 p.m. And for the East Coasters, that would be 7 p.m. And so we are going to have to deal with that nonsense just a little bit. That's going to be a bit of a struggle for me to actually play in these events. That's really close to old man bedtime. And so we'll have to see if we can handle that. But the perk behind the Daily Rumble and this terrible time start is we did get one tweet out here from Ruben Zoo, stating that as you start an event, it doesn't just automatically end as the day ends. And so, not in the article, unfortunately, but the runs do carry over until the next day. So if you start your event at 6 p.m., you only get to play 2 matches within an hour. If you jump back in the next day, your same event will be continuing on. And so this is the only place where I'm going to bring a bit of bitchiness to the format. It is just kind of awkward in terms of the timing. I'm very surprised that they chose a time so late, that they gated it to such a short time window, and they didn't at least kind of like rotate the time. So on Monday it starts at 2 p.m., on Tuesday it starts at 6 p.m., on Wednesday it starts at 8 p.m., whatever, just so that if you're looking to play one of these events, you might have an opportunity to do it, to where if you, I don't know, if you work noon to 8 at whatever your job is, you may not be able to play in these kind of events. And so this is still just kind of a beta environment. I would not be surprised to see things like this change, but to me, this is the only kind of bummer throughout the remainder of all of the news that we received today. And so, to get away from the bummers, back into the excitements, this is going to be a format of rotating event types. And so the latter will still remain either the current standard format or the Eternal, where you get to play all the cards. In the Gauntlet tournaments, they're going to have this rotating cast of events that will eventually also contain Eternal formats. And so they are described down here a little bit better than I'm going to say, but this is kind of cool to me. I think it's a nice throwback to what the Gauntlet originally was, as to where there would be like the Singleton Gauntlet and the Standard Gauntlet. I think there may have been 1 or 2 other varieties. I think it's kind of nice that there's this rotating kind of different formats that also tie into the competitive scene. And so I thought that the Time Winder gauntlets were pretty cool, pretty exciting, but there wasn't a whole lot of reason to do it, especially as they were bugged jumping into the Last Chance gauntlets. But it gives you a nice little change of pace if you don't want to play ladder all of the time. And it gives you this nice little change of formats to get used to. And I think this is all in all pretty positive. And so if you want to scroll down a little bit further, there's a couple of other interesting tie-ins with this. The next picture I'm going to are the rewards for playing in the competitive events. And so the gauntlets tie into acquiring badges and prime glories. You get new titles depending on how well you do in the event. And then if you collect enough badges by the end of the season, you get a extra special season badge. And so I think this is a nice kind of tie-in to the kind of gauntlet scene and giving you something to do with the kind of competitive aspects of the game. It's not a matter of just, hey, try your best to win this tournament, and if you lose, fuck you. There's a bit of reason to actually kind of come out and grind and have a bit of reason to play an event more than once, I should say, right? As we were playing gauntlets and the like, you were really trying to hit that prime glory, that one gauntlet that really mattered, and then you didn't have much more reason to play beyond that. I really like this addition of having more reason to play more than one, and so I think they've done a pretty good point there. Now, I have skipped on one of the big tournament formats, one of the big new things. If you're taking a look at the picture, you may see this image up here at the top for Prime Glories Earned and the Runeterra Open. And so there is going to be a new Open tournament once a month, which is also pretty cool in my opinion. Trying to find it. Here we go. As to where this functions basically like Seasonals does these days, as to where like once a month there's going to be a big Saturday tournament looking to be an 8-rounder, and if you do well in that tournament you get big trophies to go towards that reward pass, and you can also acquire the bait title along with the Reckoner title. But this happens once a month, and then every other month this will be a special open tournament, as to where that does actually function like Seasonals did. And so you jump in, you play. If you make the top cut, you get to move into the second day and play for cash rewards and Worlds invites. And so this is something that I've really been kind of like preaching and hoping for. If you look towards the Arena Opens in Magic Online, they have a very similar style of event, to where you jump in. If you get like 7 wins before you get 3 losses or something, you get to play in the second day. And then in the second day, same kind of deal. It's like 6 or 7 rounds or 3 losses. And then however many wins you get, you earn prizes and in-game currency and the like. And I think that's a very fantastic kind of setup and format. It doesn't require you to qualify for it. You just have to show up. And if you do well, you get a pretty reasonable set of rewards, but it's also not tied into anything else. And so you don't have to qualify for it like you did for Seasonals. You can just kind of show up and play. And I really like the openness to that kind of thing. I feel like that really helps to attract players, to where if you don't have to grind the ladder needlessly or endlessly to hopefully get to that space to where you can 7 and 2 top cut in, it's nice to just have that kind of removed from the equation. Now, the kind of tie-in for this, and what I also love as well, as we did mention this Runeterra Open Prime Glories thing up at the top, this reminds me of one of the problems I think it was as we played a lot of expeditions in the past. And so if you look at the daily Rumble buy-in section, there's the 650 shards or 200 coins entry fee. And I feel like one of the real problems that Riot ran into, at least in terms of expedition, is that the shards were so meaningless. Like on my main account right now, I have like 800,000. On my second level up account, I feel like I'm doing pretty fine, and I feel like the shards were ultimately meaningless. And so there was never kind of like this feel of a kind of risk reward style thing. Like I've seen a lot of people on Reddit be like, "Herder, it'd be nice if you could have shards returned back from the entry fee so you could go infinite. Like, everybody's already fucking infinite in this game. And so, like, how do you kind of like make it feel like you're getting invested into something in the future, as you know that, okay, I'm going to join this event with this useless currency, I'm going to play it, and I'm going to get paid back in some kind of useless currency. Like, that's what it always felt like in Expedition, as there was quote unquote no reason to play. And so I feel like at least that the addition of those kind of buys really kind of give you a fairly heavy incentive to come in and play in some of these events. And so the where that's kind of going is like, it's really tough to pick up a meaningful reward if the currency is so meaningless, right? If you're out there and you're trying to grind Magic Online, you can, buy the new set for like $300 or what it's going to cost you, and then you could probably draft for a month for a couple $100 on top of that. $500, you're out of the expansion. Great. There's always going to be people trying to min-max that game as to where you want to be able to play for free or as at least cheaply as possible. And so you're looking at the best buy-in ratio to reward, and that's just not something that exists in Runeterra. Absolutely nobody cares about the in-game currency because it's so meaningless. And so that was one of the things that I really do think is fairly important, is those buys. And I'm kind of curious if there's not a way to even kind of like ramp that up to really kind of tie in with buy-ins and the like. And so I do think, it's tough as you kind of like look at this reward structure. You have to say, like, how can this be useful for casual players? How can this be useful for competitive players like Bust, to where they play kind of like casual competitive? They're decent at the game, but they're never going to qualify for Worlds. And then that kind of upper echelon of competitive. Like, how do you feed into all three of those? And I think that this structure is very fantastic for all of that. So if you're just kind of a casual player, you have a nice like structure and ladder that you can grind towards. You can play the competitive stuff, but you don't have to be fantastic at it to get some of those rewards. As there's players like myself, it is nice having that potential to get buys going into the open events to make the opens a little bit more reasonable, if you will. And then the entire structure still having that kind of tie into Worlds for those really high end competitive players, still having the big competitive event that they need to reach that kind of upper echelon of gameplay. And so I think it's all wonderful. I think it's all well and good. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And so there were a lot of things in here like the World's qualifiers. I just don't feel like most of us are ever going to do that. So I don't worry about that too much. But I think it's really interesting and nice to have these kind of smaller tournaments to turn up and come along the way. And so, all interesting, all well, all good. The last thing I will say is, do keep in mind that this is a beta season. I'm sure there's a lot of salt already out there flying around, at least on the Reddit. As I look towards Twitter, the competitive community seems somewhere between this is awesome to like this is next level awesome. I have not seen a single complaint from anyone in the competitive community. In terms of the Reddit community, there's a lot of dipshits out there complaining already. And so if you see yourself kind of like leaning towards dipshit complainer and less towards the end of, wow, this is pretty awesome, again, do keep in mind that this is just a beta season, and they're going to be using this feedback to really tie into how all of the future events go. But I think it's great. I think it's exciting. The rotations once a month, the hype tied into that, all well and good. The daily tournaments, even though I'm going to struggle to have the time to play them, I think it's a great advancement for the game. The openness of the seasonal tournaments, this big monthly seasonals type event, I think it's fucking fantastic. And I think this is all in all a very excellent sign for the things in the future of Legends of Runeterra. And so that's it. I'm excited. I hope you are too. I hope you're towards that. This is elevating and not the dipshit. This is sad. kind of spectrum of feels. Let me know down in the comments though. Agree or disagree. I always love to hear it. And so that is going to do it for us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way. and had a good time watching. So this is Bustin'. We thank you for being here.